Thomas James Serle. Thomas James Serle, 1798–1889, was an English dramatist and actor. He was also a journalist at the Weekly Dispatch. Early life. Serle was born in Gracechurch Street, London, on 28 October 1798 and educated for the bar. Between the ages of 16 and 18, he wrote 4 5-act plays, which were presented to Drury Lane Theatre by Peter Moore, then on its committee, without result. At the age of 18, Serle played Romeo at the Theatre Royal, Liverpool, with John Vandenhoff as Mercutio in Romeo and Juliet, and soon after 1820 and 1821 played the lead in Hamlet at Cambridge, Croydon, and 7 times at the Regency Theatre, Tottenham Court Road. He brought out a 5-act play there and acted the principal character, Rupert Duval, over 3 nights. Serle next played a season at the Old Royalty Theatre, opening in Hamlet, at the time when Clarkson Frederick Stanfield painted the scenery there. On tour. Playing in the provinces, Serle brought out Waltheof the Saxon in Exeter and the Parricide at Dover. He managed the Dover Theatre for 2 seasons and played at Boulogne in the summer of 1824. In the spring of 1825, he played at the Royal Park Theatre in Brussels, while Francois Joseph Talma was playing at La Monnaie. Talma introduced himself behind the scenes and mentioned Serle at the British Embassy favourably. The erased Italian, Princess de Chimay, bespoke his Hamlet the 2nd time. Returned to London. Serle returned to England, playing at Lincoln and other venues. He was engaged at Covent Garden Theatre and opened in Hamlet during November 1825. He remained at 3 seasons playing with Edmund Kean, Charles Mayne Young and Charles Kemble. He played at Norwich and then at the Royal Coburg Theatre with Kean. He translated and adapted Dominique, Victim of St. Vincent, and the Man in the Iron Mask, playing the principal characters. When an attempt was made around 1830 by the London Patent Theatres to close their rival minor theatres, Serle took part in the resistance movement. There was a majority in the House of Commons for abolishing the monopoly, but the Lords threw out the bill. Afterwards, however, a jury refused to convict in the case of D.W. Osbaldiston, the manager of the Surrey Theatre. 1830s. Serle then wrote The Merchant of London, a play in 5 acts, produced at Drury Lane Theatre in the spring of 1832, House of Coburg, in 5 acts, autumn of same year, William Macready acting in both. Serle about this time called together the dramatic authors, by advertisement signed by himself and Douglas Jerrold, and so helped to found the Dramatic Authors Society, of which he was honorary secretary for some years. It acted as a pressure group for legitimate drama. Serle's next production was The Yeoman's Daughter, a domestic drama in 2 acts, in which, with the Lyceum Company at the Adelphi Theatre, he played the principal character. In 1833 was produced The Ghost Story, 2 acts, under Bond's management at the Adelphi. Serle became in 1834 stage manager of the English Opera, Lyceum Theatre, and opened it with an address written and spoken by himself, The Yeoman's Daughter being the first piece. In this year he wrote and spoke the prologue to Miss Mitford's tragedy of Charles Roman II, produced at the Victoria Theatre, the renamed Royal Coburg Theatre, under William Abbott and Daniel Edgerton. In 1835, Serle produced and acted in The Shadow on the Wall at the Lyceum, then also called the English Opera House, 2 acts, and Widow Queen, comedy, 2 acts. In Richard John Raymond's The Old Oak Tree, based on the memoirs of Jean Henry Latude, he played Latude there. In 1836, Serle spoke the prologue to The Tragedy of Ion, on its first representation at Covent Garden, for Macready's benefit, and wrote The Witch's Son, 2 acts. He lectured on the plays of Shakespeare and dramatic subjects at institutions in London, Liverpool, and Manchester. Serle joined the Covent Garden Company under Macready in the autumn of 1837. He produced Francis Otto, Parole of Honour, and Joan of Arc, each in 2 acts. The title role in Joan of Arc was played by Mary Haddock later Warner. Henry Crabb Robertson thought well of the plot. Serle was acting manager for the season 1838-9 and produced Agnes Bernard, 2 acts. In 1840, he brought out Master Clark, a play in 5 acts, on the subject of Richard Cromwell, at the Haymarket Theatre, Cromwell being acted by Macready. In autumn of 1840, he wrote 4 plays on the history of France, to be read as lectures, and read them at London institutions, The Prescribed, The Jacquerie, The Queen and the Minister, and Gaston de Foix, each in 5 acts. 1840s. In autumn of 1841, Serle resumed acting management with Macready at Drury Lane. He translated and adapted Sappho from Sappho, the opera by Giovanni Pacini. He remained acting manager to the close of the season 1842-3, when Macready's tenure expired. Serle's theatrical friends included Thomas James Thackeray, Edward Bulwer Lytton, and Douglas Jerrold. From then on, Serle began to concentrate on his other interests. He managed for John Mitchell 1806–1874, the English Company in Paris, 1844–5, when Mackety and Helen Fawcett played there, and wrote the opening address for Sadler's Wells, the Mary Warner Samuel Phelps management. He produced The Priest's Daughter, a tragedy. Serle adapted Beaumont and Fletcher's Scornful Lady and Double Marriage for Mary Warner's management at the Marylebone Theatre. He put on a 3-act domestic drama at the Surrey Theatre, A Village Story, and a 1-act comedy, Tender Precautions, at the Princess's Theatre, which was played at Windsor Castle the last time any theatrical performance was given there. End of theatrical career. In 1852, Serle's Annie Tyrrell, or Tree Copse, with theme The Execution of a Poacher, was put on at the Surrey Theatre. In the end, he gave up the theatrical world. Serle died, aged 90, at Novello Cottage, Worthing, on 18 March 1889. Works. 2 early 5-act plays, published but not known to have been performed, were Raphael Samaro 1819 and Fulvius Vallis 1823. He wrote the paper on Ben Jonson in No. 2 of the Retrospective Review. The 1832 essay The State of the Drama, often attributed to Bulwer Lytton, is now considered to be by Serle. In 1838 and 1839, Serle travelled over the ports of France connected with Joan of Arc. He wrote The Players, or The Stage of Life 1847, a novel, and Joan of Arc, a romance, published by Henry Colburn. Journalist. The Weekly Dispatch was a high-circulation popular newspaper in Victorian Britain. Serle wrote in it under the pen name Caustic. He served as its editor in the 1870s. Family. In 1836, Serle married Cecilia 1812–1890, daughter of Vincent Novello and sister of Mary Cowden Clark and Clara Novello. She had been a pupil of the singing teacher Miss S. Blaine Hunt and performed in public. Their daughter Emma Clara died 1877, was a soprano.